Finding empowerment, embracing layers, yeah. We get to feel.
Today, we're talking about the power of the pause, the power of stopping for a minute and before giving any kind of an answer, before giving a yes, before giving a no. This is something that is really connected to the conversations we've been having the last 2 weeks. We talked a couple of weeks ago about tracking how many times you say, I'm sorry for things that you're not actually responsible for. Last week, we talked about how over explaining can be very connected to that. And this week, we're going to talk about, I think, a tool that if you're able to put it into place, can really help you with these latter two that we've talked about the previous weeks. So, this is something that I knew about, but really I got to credit a couple of guests, Deanne Wells in season 2, and our friend Valerie Rivera in season 4. And then she came back and visited us again in season 9. And they really planted the practice of it, not just the idea of it. But Deanne has a very specific 24-hour rule that we're going to talk about in a minute. And Valerie said something to me that I will never forget. She's like, whatever you're saying yes to, you're saying no to something else, whether that is in your thought processes at the moment or not. That's just a given. Whatever you're saying yes to, that means you're saying no to anything else that would have come in to that time, that bandwidth that you have. So you better be okay and check in with yourself if you're okay with saying no to that. And so those two thoughts, those two practices really helped me personally in how I think about this. It gave me an actual, rather than, okay, power of the pause, it gave me some words, some verbiage, some really specific thoughts to think about in these moments. So today we're going to talk about why people pleasers struggle to say no, the benefits of pausing before making commitments, how to set healthy boundaries without guilt, why over explaining weakens your confidence, simple phrases to buy yourself time before responding, how to make decisions that align with your priorities, and the connection between your self-value, boundaries, people pleasing, how those things connect and play off each other, and the impact these decisions we make have on how we feel about ourselves, how they reflect how we value ourselves or not, and why your time and energy deserve protection. And then the key takeaway from this, and it will be covered multiple times throughout this, because I want you to take this away and really utilize it this week in your life and see the difference that it makes if you're not already putting this practice into play. So why do people pleasers struggle to say no? Well, we don't want anyone, and I say we because I'm a reformed people pleaser, and it's something I still have to be mindful of. I have one of my daughters is very mindful about asking me when I say I want to do something or don't want to do something. She's like, are you sure that's what you want to do, Mom? Or are you just trying to keep everybody else around you happy? They literally are adults now. They've watched me do this, and so they're mindful, and they keep me accountable. And she will ask me, are you sure that's what you want to do, Mom? And give me a chance to pause myself and think. So it's good to have those people around you that know these things and want you to make sure you're living from your own value system and not trying to keep others happy around you. But if you don't have that, just remember that if you're abandoning yourself and offering yourself up in a situation where you're not going to be fully resourced, your resources are going to be tapped into, you don't actually want to do this, this doesn't actually align with where you want to be giving your time, what your values are, what you care about, then the person on the receiving end of this is not winning either. No one's getting the healthiest version of you. So the people pleasing, it can be difficult to break when people are used to us showing up a certain way. So when all of a sudden we start pausing and saying, I need some time to think about this. I need to consult my calendar. I don't have the energy for that right now. Let me come back to you by the end of the day. Let me come back to you by the end of the day tomorrow. I mean, our friend Deanne, and this is going to be part of the takeaway this week, had a 24-hour rule, that she was a minimum 24-hour rule, has that. So we struggle to say no because we don't want to disappoint anyone. But if that is that's a thing that needs some deeper work, and we've got resources for you. Go to my contact form on embracinglayers.com. I've got resources that can help you unpack that and the why behind it. But for today, within this episode, some simple things to think about is like, are they actually going to get the best energy? Is this actually who I am and how I want to show up? These are some things you can think about when someone, not just automatically going to. And that's the power of the pause. It allows you time to think. So rather than just saying yes or no, because that goes for the no's too. Maybe there's something else in your calendar that's not as aligned with who you are, that would match up better with this thing you're being asked. But pause and give yourself the time to decide. And people that love you and care about you will not only understand, they'll respect that. They'll respect that you want to make sure that if you're going to give them that time, that it's going to be honoring to them and you, because you're going to be fully present and fully resourced in that situation. Now, there's emergencies that come up. The neighbor across the street knocks on the door. Her partner's in the military and she's there on her own, and her kid's fallen out of the tree and they need you to watch the other kid while they take that kid to the emergency room. These things happen. These are real life things. Those are times where maybe you're like, give me a minute, let me grab my kids, or bring your kid over here, or whatever. There's those emergencies that come up. I don't want to minimize that, but most of the time, these are things that come up in our everyday conversations, and we'll just answer without pausing it because we don't want, and for the people pleasers, we don't want to disappoint anyone. So these are some things. Pause, ask for some time, think about, is this actually helpful to either side, both sides, when you just say yes to something that you're going to regret later. The pause gives you time to consider that. And again, people that genuinely care about you are going to be fine with that. And if they aren't fine with you pausing, taking time to consider, you may want to think about some healthy boundaries about those around time and space you give to those people. The benefits of pausing before making commitments. Again, this goes back to what I was saying to our people pleasers out there. It allows you to go back, look at your calendar, think about whether this aligns with you. Do you actually want to do this? Or is this the thing that 2 weeks from now, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said yes to that. It really doesn't align with my values. I really don't have the bandwidth for this. It makes me tired thinking about wanting to do this, because once you've made the commitment, then you're in a position to honor the commitment. So that's the power of the pause. Gives you a chance to think about that. It also gives you a chance to think like, gosh, this is something I didn't see coming, but this is the thing I've been waiting for. It allows you to go back to your calendar and decide what else. Maybe you need to move something else out. Maybe something else needs to become a no or a later, so you can make room for that. So pause gives you time to consider these things. How to set healthy boundaries without guilt. The power of the pause allows you to go back and see, okay, what do I have? What does this offer? How does this impact what is important to me? What I want to convey to people? What I want people to know about me are my values and things I'll give my space and time to, and the things that don't align with that and things I won't give my space and time to. So if it's inconsistent with the message I want to be sending, this is again beneficial to everyone. Communication is kind. Clarity is kind. Boundaries are for us to convey what we care about, what we value, what our bandwidth is. And we don't need to feel guilty about that, because I go back to, at the end of the day, one, you're valuable and you're worthy of that. But if that's something you're still working on and getting a handle on, consider that when you come up half resourced, tired, and making a choice out of obligation and actually genuinely wanting to be there, nobody wins. No one's getting the healthiest version. And none of us want to give an unhealthy, tapped out version of ourselves to anyone else. And so that, I think, really has helped me with the guilt piece. I'm like, I don't, no one's benefiting here if I can't show up as my authentic, fully resourced, present self, wanting to be there and being fully engaged. Why over explaining weakens your confidence? So what we tend to do when we don't pause, and we know we know we don't have the bandwidth for it, but we feel like we've got to justify it because it goes back to the people pleasing. We don't want to disappoint. And so we end up over explaining something where maybe in that moment, a pause buys us the time to think about, you know what, actually, I don't need to over explain it. The answer is no, I don't have the bandwidth right now. No, I appreciate that opportunity. But it's just not aligned with where I am right now. But I thank you for thinking of me. Those are words you can use, and we'll talk about words in a minute. But over explaining actually takes away from the credibility of you just saying no. They're like, oh, she knows who she is. She knows what she's got the room for. She knows what she has the bandwidth for. Over explaining pulls away at that. And it makes sense, the idea that you're second guessing what your boundaries are. You're second guessing. So if they see you second guessing, they're going to continue to ask and have expectations. Whereas if you can just stand in that and know that you're making it from a place of authenticity and what's honoring to you, and you're not abandoning yourself and your energy and your resources to make it happen, or even showing up in a place that just isn't aligned with your values anymore, that sends a strong message of and you get confidence in this as you continue to do it. You get like, oh yeah, I really was able to do that. And they really did understand. Or if they didn't understand, that tells me more about them and maybe the time and space I give to them. So don't allow, that's why the pause helps you avoid the over explaining. It gives you time, like, give me that 24 hours, give me till the end of the day to come back and be like, I had a chance to consult my calendar. I had a chance to think about it. And I was able to move something, and yes, I can do it. Or it just doesn't work at this time. Thank you for asking. Or, I know that's something I felt really strongly about 10 years ago, but I don't anymore. But thanks for thinking of me, those kinds of things. But don't allow the over explaining to take over the scenario when you can just stop and pause and gather yourself and come back later with a concise, short, kind, but direct and confidently aligned answer. And this allows you time to make the decision again that aligns with your priorities. See what's important to you right now. What's your priority? If your priority is to be home by 5:00 every night so that you have time for your walk, intentional time with your family, and you can get to bed by 9, then saying yes to that 7:30 keynote or that 7:30 workshop for 6 Wednesdays in a row probably doesn't align with that value right now. And it might be something you have to say, that time just doesn't work for me right now. But if you decide later that you can do it at an earlier time or in a different season, then we can talk about it. But I need to be home by 5 in the evenings, and that's a value of mine. It allows, so just the pause, when we answer immediately, whether it's a yes or a no, we're in it. And you can go back and say later, don't be afraid to do this, especially when you're starting to practice. You can go back and say later, you know what? I apologize for doing this, or thank you for your understanding as I share this with you. But I had a chance to go back and look at my calendar, and I got excited in the moment, but I realized this doesn't really align. It would be better for you to find somebody that has the bandwidth and time for this. You can do that. But when you pause in the moment, you don't have to do that. So that's it allows you to check your calendar, check your value system, check what's important to you, make sure it's not butting up against that. And then the connection between our self-value and our boundaries and people pleasing. When we are able to have a strong sense of who we are, when we've asked ourselves the key questions of what fills my cup, how do I want to feel, And who am I as a person? How would I describe myself? We have a strong sense of who we are. Those questions tell you us what we value. When you've done the layers work of knowing that your journey is nuanced and you don't always make the right decisions, sometimes hard things happen to you. Within that, you're able to approach it with clarity, with curiosity. You're not beating yourself up, you're not shaming yourself. That allows you to really embrace your value. When you have those things in play, you're not going to make people pleasing decisions, because you're going to make a decision from a place of your values and knowing your worth and who you are, versus allowing other people's opinions of you to decide how you feel about yourself. And so that's why I talk so much about utilizing this framework, asking these questions, doing this work with yourself, so you can make a decision based on that. Pausing, especially when you're breaking old habits. Like I said, I am a recovering people pleaser, codependent, hypervigilant human. And so the pause allows me to remember what I've learned about myself, to remember what I know now, to remember what my value is, instead of me just jumping to, oh my gosh, if I don't say this, they won't see me as important. They won't see me as an expert. They won't see me and they won't value me, rather than being like, if they know me and understand me and believe in me, they'll respect me for knowing who I am and giving it an answer that aligns with me. Why your time and energy deserve protection is this last bullet point. Because you're valuable, because you're worthy, because you get to choose, because you want to show up present and fully resourced. And not only is that healthier for you to live from that stance and be in places and spaces that align with your values, it's a benefit to the people around you. And so you giving your space and time when you're depleted, they're not getting a healthy version of you. They're not, and also how it impacts your other relationships and the people you're around. When you start getting snappy and irritable because you've said yes to something, you've decided that saying yes to that thing was more important than deserving your time and energy of protecting that, then nobody wins. Nobody wins when we show up depleted and not fully present and not fully resourced. The people on the receiving end and us. And we are deserving of that protection. We are deserving of living in alignment with our values. And again, I will say this, I say this all the time, and I'll say it every day until every woman on this planet believes it, is that you get to choose. You are worthy of that choice. And the people that love you and respect you and want what's well for you will honor that and respect that. And if they don't, then consider how much time and space you're going to give to them. So the pause buys you time to remember who you are, to come back home to that space, to look at your calendar, to check in with your value system and decide what's actually going to align well with you and be beneficial to the people on the other side. Because if it doesn't align well with you and you're just trying to get through it, they're not really benefiting from that, because they're not getting the healthiest version and most authentic version of you. All right, so the key takeaway for this is, before saying yes or no to anything other than that emergency that I gave you an example of at the beginning, give yourself a minimum of 24 hours whenever possible. Take time to evaluate your schedule, your energy levels, what your priorities and values are in this season, and desires for how you want to spend your time before committing. A thoughtful pause helps you honor both yourself and the person making the request. So those are your ways to engage this week. Those are the ways for you to think about this. And before saying yes or no to someone, consider all your options. Consider how you want to formulate whatever answer you're going to give without over explaining, and pausing and going back and giving yourself a chance of like, oh gosh, that sounded great in the moment, but I'm so glad I didn't give an answer because I realized that, and you're just like, And you can be very honoring. Like, I was so excited about that. I know I appeared really excited last night because I think it's really beautiful what you're doing. And also, I realized this is not the season for me to do this. Thank you so much for thinking of me. I hope we can talk later, or maybe we don't. You don't have to add that. You might even recommend someone else that you think might be available. Don't promise them. Give them the chance to have the agency to pause and consider. But that sometimes that, if you know of someone's like, I appreciate you thinking of me, but this person here, talk to her. I can't say she's got the bandwidth right now, but I feel like this is more in alignment with her value system than mine. And those are some things, but it gives you a chance to formulate an answer, short, concise, to the point, no over explaining. Or if it's a yes, and you have to go back and look at your calendar and be like, hey, I realize this is actually really in alignment with who I am. I've decided to move some other things around to make room for this. This is very important to me. Thank you for asking. The pause makes room for all of that. So remember, don't over-explain. Your feelings are valid. So be sure you're doing right by them and by yourself by accepting and declining what you want to. So hopefully this really gives you some tools and resources. And I think you'll see as you put this into play how it is connected to saying I'm sorry in spaces and places that you don't know an apology, because if you're declining this, you're not leading with an I'm sorry. You have nothing to apologize for. You've taken the time to consider what works for you, and you're giving them an answer. It is up to them to decide what to do that. They asked you, you gave the answer that honors you. There's no apology necessary, and there's no over-explaining necessary. You get to say yes and no to what aligns with you. So again, it connects to these last few conversations. It's a really powerful resource. So don't forget the power of the pause when you're in these conversations, to remember what you know, to remember that you are valuable, you are worthy, and you get to choose. Thanks so much for joining me today on this conversation. I've loved being here with you. I'm so thankful. I see that Margaret Williams joined. Margaret, thanks for being with me today. I appreciate that. I love what you're doing on Substack. For those listening later, whether it's here on Substack or on our favorite podcast platforms out there, let us know in the comments on those platforms. Any questions you have, any resources you're looking for, simply go to embracinglayers.com to the contact page, and let's get together and talk about how I can support you in this. But remember today, power of the pause. Great tool. Take good care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time here on the Field Podcast.